Welcome to Real Physics. Again, we need to talk about science with Sabine. You know, I love her channel. It's excellent science communication. She is really courageous, outspoken. Sabine Hostenfelder has told the truth many times.
Most of what gets published in academia is now bullshit.
And has made really a series of videos I wholeheartedly agree with. You should definitely watch them. And some of them are the best critique of contemporary science. That being said, I take the liberty to criticize her recent video on extra dimensions and dark matter. I think it's a stupid video, just below her level. And I'm not criticizing all the crap on the internet. I think for the very fact that I appreciate the channel, some feedback is needed here. And it's not, by the way, an isolated case. Please keep watching to the end. I think there is also a systematic aspect which you might want to consider one day. To begin with, be more critical with respect to the concepts. And I mean, if you talk about dark matter, there is this excellent, very founded critique, for example, by Robert Sanders, a radio astronomer who has been following the development of this idea for decades, and he has a very sound critique. But now let's have a look at her video, and I have watched it to the end, but nonetheless, I really cannot understand some of the things he's saying.
This idea has had its ups and downs, but today's news is definitely an up.
Your series, Extra Dimensions, ups and downs, and this is an up. I think everyone has got bored to death by this stuff, but let's continue.
A group of physicists say that extra dimensions might explain how our universe grew to this enormous size.
I mean, that's a preposterous claim to begin with. Extra dimensions responsible for the size of the universe? I mean, I love cosmology, and you can wonder quantitatively about the size of the universe, but not just about it's big, okay? We have an evolution, we have a beginning of the universe in the order of 13 billion years. And since then, light spreads, and of course it's big. It's as fucking simple as that.
What dark matter is made of, and also make some new predictions that could be testable soon.
Okay, another fantasy about the origin of dark matter, and then let this sink in. That could be testable soon. That means it's not testable now. So you're going to waste my time with non-falsifiable theories?
This is because they say the additional dimensions can lead to a cosmological stasis.
You know, I love cosmology and I'm doing it for decades, but it never occurred to me the necessity to introduce a term like stasis. What the hell does that mean? It's just one of these hundreds of non-quantifiable fantasies.
A temporary phase in which the universe expands, but nothing in it changes. Let's have a look. If our universe has additional dimensions of space, they need to be small so that we haven't yet noticed them. They need to be rolled up to a small radius, or if you want to hear the technical term...
I don't want to hear it.
No, you want to. They need to be compactified.
Blah, blah.
Yes, that's also what you do with the extra dimensions in string theory, but this new theory comes without strings attached.
Yeah, haha, good joke, but extra dimensions being related to strings or not, it's a non-falsifiable concept. And don't take it at face value. This would be the opportunity to give a little bit of context, like Feynman's epic takedown of extra dimensions. For example, the theory requires 10 dimensions. Well, maybe there is a way of wrapping up 6 of the dimensions. Yes, that's all possible mathematically, but why not 7? When they write down their equation, the equation should decide how many of these things get wrapped up, not the desire to agree with the experiment. So Feynman gives a good reason why he says, I strongly feel that this is nonsense. I don't like that they don't check their ideas. I don't like that for anything that disagrees with an experiment, they cook up an explanation, a fix-up to say, well, it might be. String theorists don't make predictions, they make excuses. And unfortunately, the same type of excuses we see in this paper.
The thing with these additional rolled up dimensions of space is that they can make one particle appear like an infinite number of particles.
Oh, it's so utterly banal. If you add a dimension, you get infinity. You have a point with 0 dimension and you have a line with an infinite number of points, okay? What's the point? And now she explains that these oscillations in these extra dimensions should correspond to particles, which these guys call a particle tower. Every straight-minded physicist would call this banal harmonics, okay?
They say that if you have any particle that creates such a tower of modes, and you start the tower out in the early universe by giving it some energy, then this energy will gradually decay down the tower. And while this happens, the gradual decay creates pressure that expands the universe very rapidly.
A completely fairy tale story? a mess of fantasies with some randomly thrown in physics notions? I don't know.
Is the cosmological stasis. The universe expands, but in it nothing changes. Matter doesn't come, radiation doesn't dilute, everything remains the same until this tower of particles runs out of its initial energy. Then the rapid expansion ends and the matter in the universe begins to clump and form stars and galaxies.
Why don't people realize that this is scientific storytelling, but not science? Science is about numbers and measurements and quantitative and has error bars. This is just blah blah.
It's an interesting idea because, you see, physicists have long suspected that after the Big Bang, our universe must have undergone such a phase of exponential expansion.
Yeah, let that sink in. She says it's interesting because physicists have long suspected. And this is the same lady that tells you that groupthink is a problem in physics?
Concretely, they think it must have increased its size by more than 26 orders of magnitude within a billionth of an attosecond.
Yeah, sorry, I'm unimpressed. I think it's just part of the modern fashion that the crazier the stuff is, you claim, the more respected you get in contemporary physics. And the most crazy thing is inflation. But it's not interesting because some historically illiterate math jugglers like Alan Guth and Andre Linde have indulged in their ambitious fantasies. We're coming back to this later.
I'm forever on the fence about it.
Are you kidding me? You're on the fence here.
On the one hand, I agree it's a useful theory to calculate some features of the cosmic microwave background. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure that it isn't the only theory that'll do that for you. The biggest problem with inflation is that we don't know what caused it.
No, that's not the problem. The problem is it's nonsense to begin with.
And this is where the extra-dimensional particle tower comes in. It gives rise to this cosmological stasis, which is a temporary phase of exponential expansion, and that naturally stops when all the initial energy has cascaded down.
Fairy tale story.
Better still, once cosmological stasis stops, the particles from the tower don't disappear. They linger around and form dark matter.
Wow, you need to be a genius to have that idea.
It's a particular type of dark matter called warm dark matter that physicists have considered before. They just didn't know what it might be made of. The difference between cold and warm dark matter is difficult to infer from observations.
Let's say it's not testable, and for that very reason it's so popular.
The authors say that their theory could be testable in other ways. The actual telltale signs of the gravitational wave signal, and also telltale signs of weird correlations in the cosmic microwave background.
Telltale signs of weird correlations.
Both of which might be measurable with upcoming experiments.
That means they're not measurable with current experiments, right? So again, you're wasting my time with non-falsifiable nonsense, sorry. Well, now she comes up with her opinion that she doesn't like this, but I think it's really an insult to rationality to hear all this recounted in a serious tone. Why all this suspense? Now she says,
to be shockingly honest, I think this is nonsense. It's mathematical fiction. The most interesting thing here is that people get paid for working on this.
Yeah, of course, I couldn't agree more on this statement, but why did you tell us about all this crap to begin with? 5 long minutes and then tearing it down in 30 seconds. And by the way, it's not nonsense because you, Sabine Hasenfelder, think it is. You did a bad job in explaining why. Apart from repeating all these fairy tale stories as if they were faintly interesting, just give a sound critique of the concept. And regarding inflation, I mean, it's so easy to dissect. I mean, one thing to start with, inflation needs lots and lots and lots of parameters, so it's already methodologically absurd for this reason. And one of its former publicizers has even acknowledged that it's not falsifiable. But let's have also a look at the so-called founder. Just read what Alan Guth, the inventor, said. Just read it aloud. I mean, he's crazy. These spectacularly bold theories attempt to extend our understanding of particle physics to energies about 10 to the 14 gigaelectron volts. Yeah, this is just gigantomania without foundation. We try to solidify our understanding back to the 10 to the minus 35 seconds after the Big Bang. That's preposterous. There is never the faintest chance of observing anything. And don't believe all the indirect stuff which is compatible. That's nonsense. Physics now actually is ready to talk about these bizarre sounding events in the universe. well, you're able to talk. I mean, what's the point? Is this physics? Fractions of a second and even billions of billions of a second after the Big Bang. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, this guy is just a loudmouth who stumbled upon an interesting thing and tried to sweep the problem under the carpet in a very stupid manner. By the way, the problem is the so-called flatness problem, which was discovered by Robert Dicke. And Guth hasn't even the decency to mention this very smart physicist, Robert Dicke. And then if you read the papers, what is behind this so-called flatness problem, as Dicke writes in his papers, it's Mach's principle. And it's that strange coincidence of the gravitational constant being related to the mass distribution in the universe. One very intriguing thing also other people like Dennis Sharma had observed. And all this points to very deep philosophical thoughts about the origin of gravitation of Ernst Mach. Well, if you follow my channel, you hear this all the time, of course. And I don't blame Sabine Hossenfelder that he does not go into the details of Mach's principle, but please don't take inflation at face value. Yeah, and another thing, occasionally she touches fundamental problems.
Why does space have 3 dimensions? Did God only have 3 fingers to count on?
But why dealing with that in such an utterly banal way? I mean, there were smart people like Rowan William Hamilton who pondered about the question why nature is 3 + 1 dimensional with fantastic mathematics and smart thoughts. Okay, you don't need to dive into that, but just mention that there is some interesting physics here. So in general, what I miss here is a little bit of deeper reflections about the true causes of the current crisis, or if you want, degeneration of contemporary physics. And well, if you talk about gravitational physics or cosmology, there are deep riddles and huge gaps. And the last decades have just, well, put layers of crap one after another on these unsolved questions. As I have mentioned, all this is also a problem of post-war physical culture, American hubris and exuberance, and yes, arrogance of loudmouths such as Alan Guth and André Linde that count more than the real thinkers of the past such as Erwin Schrödinger or Ernst Mach. So my advice to Sabine is dig a little bit deeper and...
Because I have to sort through increasingly large numbers of crappy papers each week.
No, you don't have to sort through these crappy papers every week. Just don't read contemporary papers, read old books instead. If I convinced you and you're interested in my perspective on fundamental physics and its development, you find many of the reasons for this crisis in physics described in my book, Make Physics Great Again. By the way, I'm happy also to send you a PDF if you email me. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it. And if you are interested in fundamental physics, subscribe to this channel.